I need you to write a love letter for me." Mason Cole said it like he was asking for a pencil, not ruining my entire afternoon. I stopped in the middle of the hallway with my backpack hanging off one shoulder and my English notes still pressed against my chest. Around us, people were spilling out of class, laughing, shoving each other, talking too loud about weekend plans. Normal campus noise. Normal Thursday. And then there was Mason, leaning against the lockers like he belonged in trouble, and trouble belonged to him. Black hoodie. Split knuckles. That tired, unreadable look that made people move around him without thinking. I stared at him. What? His eyes flicked down to the notebook in my hands, then back to my face. "You write stuff." "Essays," I said. "Short stories." "Not whatever this is." One corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile, but not enough to count. "It's just words, Parker." Nobody called me Parker except professors taking attendance and guys who didn't know what to do with my first name. Coming from him, it sounded different. Too direct. Too close. My stomach did something stupid, so I looked away first. "Why me?" Mason pushed off the lockers and stepped closer. Not close enough to touch. Just close enough that I noticed the faint smell of rain on his hoodie, even though it hadn't rained since morning. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. For one ridiculous second, I thought maybe the letter was already written and he just wanted me to fix grammar. That would have been safe. Annoying, but safe. Then he handed it to me. I unfolded it. Blank. Completely blank. I looked up slowly. "This is a joke, right?" Mason's face didn't change. "No, you handed me an empty page." "Yeah. That's not usually how love letters work." This time he did smile. "Barely. That's why I'm asking you." My chest tightened, and I hated that it happened. Mason Cole asking me for help should have been weird in a funny way. Something I could tell my roommate later while pretending it didn't matter. But it didn't feel funny. Not with the way he was watching me, like he'd already decided I would say yes, and was just waiting for me to catch up. "Who's it for?" I asked. His jaw shifted. "Just once." "Does that matter?" "If I'm writing it, yeah, kind of." Someone bumped into my shoulder passing by. I stepped back. Mason didn't. His gaze stayed on me, steady and quiet, and for a second the hallway felt too narrow, too loud and too quiet at the same time. "Just make it sound real," he said. "Not like something copied off the internet." I let out a short laugh, because that was easier than reacting honestly. "You think I just sit around writing fake feelings for people?" Mason glanced at the paper in my hand. "I think you notice things." That shut me up, because he wasn't wrong. I noticed everything. I noticed how Mason never laughed when people expected him to. How he always sat near the back of class, but still answered questions when Professor Lang pushed him. How he looked bored most of the time, except when someone was reading out loud. Then he listened. Really listened. I noticed the small scar near his eyebrow, the silver ring on his thumb, the way his eyes sometimes landed on me and stayed half a second too long before moving away. Not that it meant anything. It never meant anything. Guys like Mason did not look at guys like me that way. "I'm not good at romance," I muttered. "You're in creative writing." "That doesn't mean I know how to make someone fall in love with you." His expression changed then, so fast I almost missed it. Something softer passed through his face, then disappeared behind the usual blank stare. "I'm not asking you to make anyone do anything." His voice dropped. "Just write what someone would say if they couldn't say it out loud." I should have handed the paper back. I should have said no, because this already felt like the kind of thing that would mess with my head for no good reason. Instead, I looked down. In the bottom corner, almost hidden near the edge of the page, Mason had written one line in dark, messy handwriting. "Don't make it sound fake." My throat went dry. When I looked up again, Mason was still watching me, waiting. And somehow, the blank page in my hand felt less empty than it should have. I told myself I only took the page because Mason had cornered me in the hallway, and I panicked. That was the version I liked better. It made me sound normal. Less like the kind of person who spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about one blank sheet of paper folded inside his notebook like it was evidence of a crime. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had already unfolded it 6 times. Maybe 7. I kept looking at that one line in the corner. "Don't make it sound fake." The problem was, Mason Cole was the last person on campus I expected to care about sounding real. Most people knew him before they knew him. They knew the motorcycle parked crooked behind the library. They knew the black hoodies, the busted lip from last fall, the rumor that he got suspended for putting some guy against a wall outside the gym. They knew he skipped study groups, hated group projects, and looked like he would rather walk into traffic than talk about feelings. That was the public version, the easy version, the version I should have believed. But I had seen other things, too. Small things. Annoying things. Like the time a freshman dropped her entire coffee in front of the student center and everyone just stepped around her. Mason was the one who crouched down, helped gather her books, then handed her his own untouched iced coffee without making a big deal out of it. Or the afternoon Professor Lang forgot her stack of papers in the lecture hall, and Mason stayed behind to carry them even though he pretended he was only going that direction anyway. And once, late in the library, I saw him wake up some guy who had fallen asleep with his laptop open, only to quietly slide his hoodie under the guy's head before walking away. Nobody noticed. I did. That was my problem. I noticed him too much. I was sitting at my tiny kitchen table, staring at the blank page like it might start writing itself, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then a message appeared. You free tonight? I stared at it for too long. Another message came in. It is Mason. Obviously. I hated that I smiled. Just a little. I typed back, for the love letter. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Unless you have other plans with my blank page. My face got warm so fast I actually put the phone down. Relax, I muttered to myself. He is joking. Probably. Maybe. I picked it up again. Where? His answer came right away. Benny's Diner. 7. I need fries if I am going to talk about feelings. That sounded so normal it almost made the whole thing worse. At 7, I walked into Benny's with my notebook under my arm and found Mason in the back booth. Same black hoodie. One knee bouncing under the table. 2 baskets of fries already sitting between us. You ordered for me? He shrugged, looking out the window instead of at me. You always get fries after workshop. My hand tightened around the notebook strap. How do you know that? Mason finally looked at me. His eyes held mine just long enough for my brain to forget what I was supposed to do. I noticed things too, Parker. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he pushed one basket toward me with 2 fingers, like that made the moment less dangerous. Eat. You look like you are about to interrogate me. I slid into the booth across from him, trying to act like my chest was not doing something embarrassing. I am about to interrogate you. Who is the letter for? Mason leaned back, mouth almost curving. Start with what you need to know. Name. No. Relationship? Not yet. That is not an answer. His thumb rubbed the edge of his soda cup. Slow. Nervous, maybe. Which made no sense. Mason Cole did not get nervous. Write this down, he murmured. He is hard to talk to. My pen froze over the page. Mason's eyes lifted to mine. He did not flinch. Did not laugh. Did not correct himself. Yeah, he said quietly. My throat went dry. The diner noise kept going around us. Plates clinking, someone laughing near the counter, the bell over the door ringing behind me. But all I could hear was that one word. Mason reached across the table and tapped the blank page once, close to my fingers, but not touching. Is that going to be a problem? I should have answered right away. I should have sounded casual. Instead, I looked at his hand, then at him, and realized I had no idea what was happening anymore. No, I said too fast. Not a problem. Mason watched me like he could tell my voice had come out wrong, but he did not call me on it. He just nodded once and looked down at the fries between us. Good. That was it. One word. Like he had not just shifted the entire floor under my chair. I tried to write something, anything, but my pen hovered over the page like I had forgotten how letters worked. Mason liked a guy? Or maybe he thought he liked a guy? Or maybe I was about to write a love letter for him to hand to some perfect, confident guy with nice arms and better hair and a laugh that did not sound nervous around him. That was probably it. That made sense. Painful sense, but sense. So, I forced out, what is he like? Mason leaned back against the booth. The red diner light from the window hit one side of his face, making him look softer than he usually did in class. Less sharp, less untouchable, quiet. My stomach tightened. That narrows it down. Smart. Still broad. Always acts like he is fine, even when he is not. I looked at the page, not him. A lot of people do that. Mason's mouth moved like he almost said something, then stopped. He picked up a fry, did not eat it, just turned it between his fingers. He bites his pen when he is thinking. My hand froze. The pen was literally between my teeth. I pulled it away so fast Mason's eyes dropped to my mouth, then back to my face. Neither of us said anything for a second. The silence was not loud. That was the problem. It was small, private. like the diner had quietly stepped back and left us there alone. I let out a laugh that sounded fake even to me. Okay, that is weirdly specific. Mason finally ate the fry. You told me not to be vague. I also need details that do not sound like you are stalking somebody in the library. That got a real smile out of him. Brief, but real. It hit me somewhere in the chest. I am not stalking him. Sure, I just see him a lot. In the library? Sometimes. In class. His eyes stayed on mine. Sometimes. I swallowed. Does he know? Mason's smile faded. He looked down at the blank page between us. No, the way he said it made my chest hurt. Not dramatic. Not broken. Just honest in a way I was not ready for. Why not? His thumb brushed the corner of the paper, close enough that it nudged my wrist. Barely anything. Still, my whole body noticed. Because he would probably think I was messing with him. I could not breathe right for a second. I told myself that was normal. Anyone would react like that if Mason Cole, campus bad boy, sat across from them talking about a secret crush on a guy who sounded suspiciously familiar. Anyone. Maybe he would not, I said. Mason looked up. You think? I do not know him. You know enough to write the letter. The waitress came by then, saving me from whatever my face was doing. You boys need anything else? Before I could answer, Mason slid his untouched soda toward me. He wants water. No ice. I stared at him. The waitress nodded and walked off. I never said that. Mason shrugged, suddenly looking too casual. You always pick the ice out. My pulse tripped. Why do you know that? He glanced out the window like he regretted saying it. I told you. I noticed things. There it was again. That phrase. Like a door cracking open and closing before I could see inside. I picked up my pen because I needed something to do with my hands. Fine. First line. Mason leaned forward slightly. Okay. I wrote slowly, speaking as I did. I do not know how to tell you this without making it sound like a joke. Mason went very still. The kind of still people get when something lands too close. I looked up. Too much. He did not answer right away. His eyes were on the words, but his voice came out low. No. Keep going. Mason, please. That one word was quieter than everything else. Not demanding. Not bad boy. Not careless. Just him. I looked back down at the page, and for the first time, I stopped pretending this was only about helping him. Because whatever this was, whatever he was doing, it was not simple anymore. And the worst part was, I did not want it to be. I should have known better than to let Mason walk me home after that. It was only 8 blocks from Benny's to my apartment, and campus was still busy enough that nothing weird could happen. That was what I told myself, anyway. But Mason fell into step beside me like it was already decided, hands in his hoodie pocket, shoulder close enough to brush mine every few steps. Not touching. Almost. Somehow almost was worse. You do this for everyone? I tried to sound casual. Walk them home after forcing them to write emotional homework. His mouth twitched. Only the ones who look like they might sprint into traffic after one honest conversation. I did not look that bad. Parker. He glanced over. You stared at a napkin for 4 minutes. I laughed because he was right, and because laughing was safer than looking at him too long. The night air was cool, the sidewalks still damp from the morning rain, and Mason kept walking on the street side without saying anything about it. Small thing. Stupid thing. The kind of thing I would have ignored from anyone else. From him, my brain collected it like evidence. We made it to the old English building before he slowed down. Wait. I stopped under the covered walkway. What? Mason nodded toward the side door. There is a study room in here. Quiet. We can finish the first paragraph. It is almost 9. Scared. Of a study room? Of being alone with me. My heart hit once hard. Mason's face stayed mostly unreadable, but his eyes did not move away. That was the problem with him. He threw out lines like jokes, then waited like he actually needed the answer. You wish, I muttered. It came out too soft. He heard it anyway. The study room was small, with 1 table, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard covered in half-erased grammar notes. Mason shut the door behind us, and the clicks sounded louder than it needed to. I sat first because standing felt dangerous. He took the chair beside me instead of across from me. Of course he did. I opened my notebook to the page from the diner. The first line sat there, too honest to look at directly. I do not know how to tell you this without making it sound like a joke. Mason leaned in to read, his arm close to mine on the table. What comes next? My mouth went dry. You were supposed to tell me. I am bad at this. Clearly. He huffed a quiet laugh, but it faded fast. Maybe right. I notice you when I should not. My pen stopped. The room went still around us. That sounds intense. Is it wrong? I looked over without meaning to. Big mistake. He was already watching me, closer than I expected. Close enough that I could see the tiny cut near his bottom lip from whatever trouble he had gotten into that week. Close enough that if either of us leaned in even a little, the space between us would become a problem. No, I managed. It is not wrong. Mason's gaze dropped to my hand. My fingers were tense around the pen. Slowly, like he was giving me time to move away, he reached over and loosened my grip. His thumb brushed my knuckle. Once, then stayed there. Neither of us breathed right. You are going to break the pen, he murmured. I should have pulled back. I did not. His hand was warm, rough at the edges, careful in a way that made my chest feel too small. Mason. His name came out almost like a warning. His eyes lifted to mine. Yeah. I had no idea what I was going to say. Maybe who is the letter really for? Maybe why do you keep looking at me like that? Maybe please stop before I start hoping. But before I could ruin everything, voices passed right outside the door. Loud. Familiar. Someone laughed. Is that Cole in there? Mason's hand left mine so fast it felt like waking up. The door handle rattled once. My stomach dropped. Mason leaned back, expression locking down again, and suddenly the moment was gone. The door did not open. The voices faded down the hall. For a few seconds, we just sat there, pretending nothing had happened. Then Mason looked at the notebook and tapped the next blank line. Write this, he said, voice lower than before. I keep getting close to saying it. Then I remember what I could lose. I stared at him, pulse still racing. And for the first time, I wondered if the letter was not the dangerous part. Maybe the dangerous part was that Mason already knew exactly what he wanted to say. By Monday morning, I had convinced myself the study room thing was nothing. The hand, the almost question, the way Mason had looked at me before the voices passed the door. Nothing. A weird moment caused by bad lighting, late-night fries, and one very dramatic love letter. That was the lie I carried into Professor Lang's workshop like it had handles. Mason was already there when I walked in, back row, hood up, one boot hooked around the chair leg in front of him. He looked at me once. Just once. My chest tightened anyway. I sat 2 seats away from him because that was where I always sat, and because changing seats would have looked guilty. Not that I had anything to be guilty about. Class was halfway through peer review when Trevor Banks turned around from the row ahead of us with a grin that made my stomach sink before he even opened his mouth. Trevor was one of those guys who treated every room like a locker room. Loud, confident, always hunting for a reaction. So, Parker, he whispered, not quietly enough. I heard Cole hired you as his personal romance coach. A couple people nearby laughed. My pen stopped moving. Mason did not look up from his paper, but his jaw shifted. That true. Trevor leaned farther over his chair. You writing love letters for him now? Heat climbed up my neck. I forced a shrug. It is for practice. Practice for what? Trevor's grin got sharper. Breaking hearts or finally having one? Mason's chair scraped back half an inch. Not loud. Just enough. I felt it more than heard it. Move on, Banks. Mason's voice was low, flat, not trying to be funny. Trevor lifted both hands. Relax, man. I am just saying. It is kind of cute. That word hit the desk between us and stayed there. Cute. People laughed again, softer this time, waiting to see what Mason would do. I kept my eyes on my notebook. If I looked at him, I was going to give something away. Mason leaned forward, elbows on the desk, and the whole row seemed to go quiet around him. Say something useful or turn around. Trevor's smile faded a little. Damn. Sensitive. Yeah, Mason murmured. Today I am. That should have been nothing. Just Mason being Mason. Protective because he hated being teased. Protective because Trevor was annoying. Not because of me. Definitely not because of me. But then his hand slid across the narrow space between our desks and pushed a folded note against my notebook. He did not look at me when he did it. My pulse kicked. I waited until Professor Lang started talking again before opening it under the table. Messy handwriting. Sorry. Trevor is an idiot. Under that, smaller. You okay? I stared at those 2 words way too long. You okay? Not as the letter okay. Not did he bother you. You. I wrote back, I am fine. Then, because apparently I had lost all survival instincts, I added, you looked mad. I slid it back when Lang turned to the board. Mason read it, and for a second his mouth pressed into a line. He wrote one sentence and returned it without looking at me. I did not like hearing him talk about you like that. My throat went tight. The room blurred at the edges, just a little. I folded the note too carefully, like if I moved wrong, everyone would see what it meant. After class, I tried to leave fast, but Mason caught up outside near the vending machines. Parker. I stopped. Students moved around us, backpacks bumping, sneakers squeaking, someone's music leaking from their headphones. Mason stood close, but not as close as the study room. Like he was remembering the line and forcing himself not to cross it. I did not need you to defend me, I said. I know. Then why did you? His eyes held mine. No smirk this time. No shield. Because I wanted to. Simple. Too simple. My heart started pounding in a way that made me angry at myself. Before I could answer, a girl in a green campus hoodie stepped up beside Mason and touched his arm like she knew she could. Maze, there you are. She smiled at me briefly, then looked back at him. Are we still meeting later? Something in my chest dropped before I could stop it. Mason glanced at me, fast. Almost guilty. Harper, not now. Harper raised her eyebrows. Okay. Weird. She looked between us, and her smile changed. Like she had just noticed the air. I told myself to be normal. I told myself this was probably nothing. But as she walked away, Mason watched me instead of her. And somehow, that made it worse. I spent the rest of the day hating how much Harper bothered me. She had touched Mason's arm for maybe 2 seconds. That was it. Normal friend behavior. Normal human behavior. And still, my brain kept replaying it like it was a crime scene. By 6, I was in the library pretending to revise a poem while actually staring at the folded note Mason had given me in class. I did not like hearing him talk about you like that. I read it so many times the words started looking fake. Then my phone buzzed. Mason, meet me outside. I looked through the front windows and saw him near the bike racks, hood down, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He looked less like the campus bad boy and more like a guy who had been standing in the cold too long because he did not know what else to do. I should have waited. Made him explain over text. Protected my dignity a little. Instead, I packed my bag in about 3 seconds and walked outside. Mason saw me and straightened. Harper is my cousin. No hello. No warm-up. Just that. I stopped on the sidewalk. Okay. She needed help with a campus club thing. That was what she was talking about. You do not have to explain. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he did not believe me. Smart guy? Yeah, I do. My grip tightened on my backpack strap. Students passed behind us, laughing, carrying coffees, living normal lives where one person's cousin did not ruin an entire afternoon. Why? Mason looked away first. His jaw worked like he was biting back 3 different answers and hated all of them. Because you got quiet. I let out a small laugh. I am quiet most of the time. Not like that. The answer hit too close. I looked down at the cracked pavement between our shoes. His boots were scuffed. My sneakers were wet at the edges from the grass. For some reason, that was easier to look at than his face. I thought she was the person, I admitted. It came out smaller than I wanted. Mason did not move. The person? For the letter. The silence stretched. When I finally looked up, his expression had changed. Not amused. Not offended. Something almost careful. You thought I was writing all that for Harper? I did not know what to think. Parker. His voice dropped, and I hated how my body reacted to it. I told you it was a guy. People lie when they are scared. He stared at me for a second, then breathed out through his nose like that one hurt. Yeah, they do. That should have ended the conversation. It did not. Mason stepped closer, not enough to trap me, just enough to make the air feel different. I was not lying about that. My heart started doing the stupid thing again. Okay. And I was not joking in the study room. My eyes snapped to his. He looked nervous. Actually nervous. Mason Cole, who could stare down Trevor Banks without blinking, was standing in front of me like one wrong word from me might knock him flat. About what? I knew what. I just needed him to say it because I was tired of being the only one losing my mind. Mason's fingers flexed inside his pockets. About getting close to saying it. The library doors opened behind me. Warm air spilled out. Someone walked past, then someone else, and Mason looked over my shoulder like he remembered where we were. Like the outside world still existed and could still take this from him. When his eyes came back to mine, they were quieter. I did not want you to leave last night. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. Mason, I know. He gave a tiny, humorless smile. Bad idea, right? I should have said yes. I should have said this was messy and confusing and probably about some other guy no matter what my heart was trying to believe. Instead, I said nothing. Mason pulled one hand from his pocket and held out the folded blank page. Not blank anymore. My first lines were there. His line was there too. I keep getting close to saying it. Then I remember what I could lose. I tried to add more, he murmured. Could not. I took the paper, our fingers brushing. He did not pull away this time. Neither did I. For 2 seconds, maybe 3, we just stood there holding the same page between us. Then Mason looked at our hands and said quietly, "That is the part that feels real to me." My breath caught. Around us, campus kept moving. Bikes rattled. Cars passed. People talked. But Mason stayed there, fingers still touching mine, like he had already decided normal was not enough anymore. For one stupid second, I almost believed we were done pretending. Mason's fingers were still touching mine around the edge of the page, and he was looking at me like he had finally run out of places to hide. I could have said something. I should have said something. Then Trevor's voice cut across the sidewalk. "Yo, Cole." Mason's hand dropped so fast the paper bent between my fingers. He stepped back. Not far, but enough that it felt like a door shutting. Trevor came over with 2 guys from Mason's circle, all loud sneakers and energy drinks, and that kind of grin people wear when they think they own the moment. His eyes moved from Mason to me, then to the page in my hand. "Still working on the romance project?" One of the guys laughed. Mason's face went blank. Completely blank. The careful, nervous version from 2 seconds ago disappeared like it had never existed. "It is nothing," Mason muttered. I knew why he said it. I did. People were watching. Trevor was fishing for a reaction. Mason was not out. Mason was scared, but the words still hit me in the chest. "It is nothing." My hand closed around the paper. "Right," I said quietly. "Nothing." Mason's eyes flicked to me. Fast. Sharp. Like he heard the way I said it, and immediately regretted something. Trevor nudged his friend. "Damn. Parker looks heartbroken." Heat shot up my neck. I looked away before anyone could see my face properly. Mason turned on him. "Back off." His voice had an edge now, but it came too late. The damage was already sitting between us, ugly and silent. "Chill, man." Trevor lifted his hands, laughing. "I am messing around. Do it somewhere else." For once, Trevor actually listened. He and the others walked off, still laughing under their breath, and the sidewalk got quiet again. Not peaceful, just empty. Mason reached toward me, then stopped halfway. "Parker." I folded the page once. Carefully. Too carefully. "I should go." "Wait. I have a draft to finish." "Ethan." That was the first time he used my first name. Not Parker. Not a joke. Not a shield. "Ethan." It should have stopped me. It almost did. My chest tightened so hard I hated myself for it. I looked at him anyway. Mason stood there with both hands half raised, like he wanted to fix something but did not know what he was allowed to touch. I did not mean it like that. I let out a small laugh. It sounded worse than silence. "You said it pretty clearly." His jaw tightened. They were standing right there. "I know." "Then you know why." "Yeah." I nodded, staring past him at the bike racks. "I know." That was the problem. Knowing did not make it feel better. Mason looked down, rubbing his thumb over the ring on his hand. Nervous again. Human again. "I just need a second." A second for what? He did not answer fast enough. And in that pause, all my worst thoughts walked right in. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he liked the almost part, the secret part, the diner and the study room and the blank page between us, but not the real-world version where people noticed. Maybe I had been stupid again, reading too much into a guy who only got brave when nobody else was around. I handed the folded page back to him. He did not take it at first. "Keep it," I said. "It is your letter." His eyes lifted. "Ethan, give it to whoever you actually want to give it to." The second I said it, I wanted to take it back. Not because it was untrue, because it sounded too much like I cared. Mason's face changed, just a little, but I turned before I could watch it happen. I walked away fast, through the library doors, past the front desk, all the way to the back corner where nobody could see me sit down and press my palms against my eyes like that would make my heart calm down. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later. Then again, I did not look. I told myself I was being smart. I told myself he had made his choice the second he let go. But when I finally opened the message, there were only 5 words from Mason. I panicked. It was real. And right under it, another one came through. "Please do not finish the letter without me." I stared at the message until the words stopped looking real. I panicked. It was real. Please do not finish the letter without me. My first instinct was to type back something safe. Something stupid like okay or it is fine, even though it was not fine, and I was not okay, and none of this had felt safe since the second Mason handed me that blank page. Instead, I put my phone face down on the library table and tried to breathe like a normal person. That lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then a shadow fell over my notebook. I looked up. Mason was standing there, out of breath, hoodie unzipped, hair messy like he had actually run across campus. He did not sit. He did not pretend this was casual. He just looked at me and said, "I am done acting like that did not happen." My chest tightened. Which part? His mouth opened, then closed. He looked down at the chair across from me, then dragged it closer instead of sitting far away. The sound scraped through the quiet floor. A couple people glanced over. Mason did not seem to care this time. He sat close enough that his knee almost touched mine under the table. All of it. I looked at my hands. That is a big category. Yeah. His voice was rough. I know. For a second, neither of us said anything. The library hummed around us. Pages turning. Someone typing too hard. Rain tapping lightly against the tall windows. Mason put the folded page on the table between us, smoothing the bent corner with his thumb. When Trevor showed up, I freaked out. I noticed. I heard how it sounded. I kept my eyes on the paper. It sounded like I was nothing. Mason flinched. Not dramatic. Just enough to make me regret saying it and feel relieved at the same time. You are not. Then why say it? He rubbed both hands over his face, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. For once, he looked 23. Not dangerous. Not untouchable. Just scared and tired of being scared. Because people already think they know me, he murmured. They think I am this guy who does not care, does not feel, does not get nervous. And it is easier to let them think that than explain anything real. I swallowed. Anything real like me? His eyes lifted. There it was. The line. Right in front of us. Mason could have stepped around it again. Made a joke. Looked away. He did not. Yeah, he said quietly. Like you. My heart hit so hard I felt it in my throat. I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. You know that sounds insane, right? Probably. You barely talk to me in class. Because every time I try, I say something weird. That got me. I looked at him despite myself. You always say something weird. His mouth curved for half a second. Exactly. The smile faded. He tapped the page once. I did not ask you to write this for Harper. Or some random guy. Or anyone else. My fingers curled around the edge of my sleeve. Then why not just say that? Because I did not know if you would want it to be you. The sentence landed so softly it hurt more than if he had shouted it. I stared at him, and all the little moments came rushing back at once. The fries. No ice. The study room. His thumb against my knuckle. The way he looked after I said he might not be joking. I thought I was making it up, I admitted. I kept telling myself I was being stupid. Mason shook his head. You were not. Then say it clearly. My voice barely worked. Just once. He went still. Then he reached across the table, slow enough that I could pull away. I did not. His fingers touched mine, not hiding this time, not pretending to reach for the paper. Just touching me. His eyes stayed on my face. Ethan, the letter is for you. The whole library seemed to go quiet, even though it did not. I looked down at our hands. His thumb moved once across my knuckle, careful and unsure. And if that messes everything up, he added, I will deal with it. But I cannot keep watching you write the truth for me while I act like I am not saying it. I breathed out, shaky and quiet. You could have led with that. Mason gave a small, nervous laugh. Yeah, I am finding that out. I turned my hand under his so our fingers fit better. Not much. Just enough. His breath caught. For the first time, I saw it happen to him too. I am still mad, I whispered. Fair. And scared. Me too. The answer came fast. Honest. No shield. I looked at the folded page between us. Then we finish it together. Mason's eyes softened in a way that made my chest ache. Yeah. I nodded, still holding his hand under the table where no one else could see. Not because we were ashamed. Just because the moment was ours first. But no more pretending it is for someone else. Mason squeezed my fingers once. No more pretending. And that was when I realized the blank page had never been empty. We had just been too scared to read what was already there. We finished the letter at the same table where I had almost decided to stop hoping. It took us 40 minutes, mostly because Mason kept getting nervous every time I read a line out loud. and because I kept pretending I was editing when really I just wanted to hear him say what he meant again. The final version was not perfect. It had crossed out words, messy margins, one coffee stain, and a corner bent from where I had gripped it too hard outside the library. But it sounded like us. Awkward, careful, too honest in some places, not enough in others. Mason read the last line twice, then looked over at me. This part is yours. I leaned closer. Which part? He tapped the page. I kept pretending this was about someone else, because that felt safer than wanting you. My throat tightened, but this time I did not look away. Yeah, I said. That part is mine. Mason nodded slowly, like he was holding the sentence somewhere inside his chest. Then he reached for the page and folded it once. I thought he was going to put it in his backpack. Instead, he slid it across the table to me. Keep it. I frowned. It is your letter. His hand stayed on top of it for one extra second before he let go. No, his eyes found mine. It was always yours. That should have sounded dramatic. Coming from Mason, it did not. It sounded like he had finally stopped fighting the simplest truth in the room. We left the library after that, not because everything was solved, but because the building was closing and the student worker had already given us 3 exhausted looks from behind the desk. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sidewalks were dark and shiny under the campus lights. Mason walked beside me, quieter than usual, his shoulder brushing mine every few steps. This time, neither of us moved away. Near the bike racks, Trevor and 2 other guys were sitting on the low wall, passing around a bag of chips and laughing about something. My stomach tightened on instinct. Mason felt me slow down. He looked at them, then at me. For a second, I saw the old fear pass across his face. The habit, the warning, the part of him that wanted to step back before anyone noticed. Then he took a breath and held out his hand. Not hidden, not under a table, just there, between us, in the open night air. My heart started pounding. You sure? I whispered. Mason looked nervous. He also looked sure. No, a tiny smile pulled at his mouth. But I am doing it anyway. So I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, and the world did not explode. Trevor noticed, of course he did. His eyebrows shot up. One of the guys beside him stopped mid-laugh. Mason's grip tightened, but he did not drop my hand. He did not make a joke. He did not call it nothing. He just kept walking with me. Past the bike racks. Past the old English building. Past every place where we had almost said something and then swallowed it back. Halfway to my apartment, Mason glanced over. You hungry? I laughed, because it was so painfully normal after everything. You just confessed feelings, and now you want fries. I confessed feelings badly. Fries might help. I bumped his shoulder with mine. You are ridiculous. Yeah. He looked down at our hands, then back at me. But you were still holding on. I was. That was the thing I remembered most. Not a big speech. Not some perfect movie moment. Just Mason Cole walking beside me with our hands locked between us, pretending not to smile every time I squeezed back. We went to Benny's. Same back booth. Same terrible lighting. Same fries between us. But this time, when Mason slid my water toward me with no ice, I did not tell myself it meant nothing. I just looked at him and said, You really do notice things. Mason smiled then. A real one. Soft and a little scared and completely his. Only the important stuff. And maybe that was how it started for real. Not with the blank page. Not with the letter. But with both of us finally choosing to stop leaving the truth unfinished.